1995 was a different kind of year for this chapter. For the first time, our biggest reason for existence was gone. And in a year's time, we've learned how to get back up and keep on going. We've completely restored things, done some publishing. We made a movie. From a trip to Orbersonia to write a piece of history to Birmingham to see the sale of the century. We did a lot. This is the year in review for 1995. We begin the year by looking at the old NRHS locomotive shops in Roanoke. It is 3 weeks after 611 rode into town for her last time. Deep inside the former paint shop, our friend sleeps and will do so for the next 10 months. And we managed to get a view of 611 wrapped in plastic. Citing reasons for terminating the operation of steam trips, Norfolk Southern stated that liability and safety were key concerns, and in January the company's safety record was scarred somewhat when two NS trains crashed on the New River Bridge just outside of Radford, Virginia. 6 crew members escaped serious injury by jumping before impact. One engine went nose first into the cold water, and much of the remains had to be cut up into pieces on site before being hauled away. The chapter had a bright note as the new year got underway with the new 611 Final Excursions calendar. Photos were included from 611's actual last weekends of operations. Various NRHS chapters, along with Ken Miller, Richard Shell of Salem Printing, Rudder Photo, and the Roanoke chapter gift shop, made this calendar a huge success. The cold days of February rolled in, and this chapter said goodbye to longtime friend Art Bixby, once curator at the Roanoke Transportation Museum. Mr. Bixby's association with Class J number 611 spanned a period of 18 years. He was a life member of the Roanoke chapter and wrote a fascinating story on Engine 611 that appeared in the NRHS National Railway Bulletin in 1992. That year he turned 88 and served as historian for the Jersey Central chapter. He knew 611 inside and out and personally owned documents to prove it, even pictures of 611 involved in 2 rare accidents: a brush with a truck in 1953 and the famous Tug River rollover in 1956. He was a true asset to us all. Art Bixby will be dearly missed. Well, 1995 seemed to be missing something that once took up a lot of our time, and not to be outdone, your long-range planning committee got working on new ideas, suggestions as to where the chapter's car fleet can be used, for example. This in turn resulted in a coach rental involving a major chemical maker in Hopewell that we'll cover shortly. Evidence that as one eyebrow was raised, another blow to our emotions hit us was on February 28, 1995. The Norfolk Southern Steam Program Equipment Auction held at the shops near Birmingham, the site where the steam excursion locomotives were maintained for 28 years. To those who attended, they saw things for sale that nobody could believe. Locomotive roller bearings, massive air pumps, new, still on the pallets for Giant 1218. The big articulated engine sat half-assembled, part of a major rebuilding job that never saw completion. And now her parts on the floor were part of an auction that included cabooses, camp cars, and you name it. Many called this the shark feeding. The bidding continued like this all day long. A small party of the Roanoke chapter, Ken Miller, Richard Shell, and Jerry Johnson, went to bid on tool car 1407. This was 611's and 1218's crew and maintenance car for also many years. We can thank Robert B. Clater for setting the car aside for safekeeping many years ago in Roanoke. It was our mission to bring it back. After tedious bidding and a credit check mobile setup, car 1407 was ours, and Ken went outside to add a finishing message. The 1407 came home in March on the tail end of a mixed freight train bound for Roanoke, and the car made the front cover of the chapter's newsletter. And that brings us to our newsletter, the Turntable Times, made up of volunteers, writers, and photographers. And one can find out who's sick, where the latest in trains is, other club news, and human interest stories, along with specials going on at our gift shop. Thanks to editor Kenny Kirkman for a job well done. As the year continued, fair weather made for ideal construction conditions, and the stage was set for the building of the new pedestrian overpass at the Hotel Roanoke. First, huge truss beams were brought in and hoisted into place by cranes. The bridge eventually stretched across the former NW main line just west of the passenger station. Because the bridge would block train crews from seeing their appointed track signals, the old NW signals for westbound traffic were brought down. And it wasn't long the new bridge was complete. It even includes an observation platform for people to see the trains down below. The chapter's first major car rental since the STEAM program was canceled came in April as we were supplying coaches to an employees' fun day at Allied Signal in Hopewell, just outside of Richmond. A small but dedicated workforce got the cars ready at our 9th Street siding. There was underframe air conditioning to charge up. New brake shoes were added. Window shades and broken windows had to be replaced. Then the windows were slowly scrubbed with SOS pads. Inside, tile floors were returned to their shine after hours of hard work. The work went on like this for 3 weeks. Much was expected of these cars for this rental. Allied Signal was allowing hundreds of people to visit their chemical plant, a place of environmental controversy in the 1970s, but not today in 1995. This was a public outing, and everyone had a great time. One look out the window, and it was evident this was not a high-speed express. But the trip was entertaining, allowing people to get close to a very industrial surrounding. A unique trip with 2 short trains, but fun for the families that came. And that's what a train is all about. Fair weather means May, and the sons of summer have returned. Various work projects got underway. The chapter's mechanical committee decided that restoration to our caboose would be completed by time fall would arrive. And over at the Transportation Museum, ground was broken for the new protective shed for the 611, due to arrive for final display in October. And in May, our gift shop headed by Grace Helmer participated in the Manassas Railway Festival in Northern Virginia. We'll come back here again. Let's go back to the 9th Street siding and put together a whole year's worth of restoring a caboose, all in about 2 minutes. month of May was just about over, and making plans throughout the month, the Roanoke Chapter's gift shop was ready for the Manassas Railroad Festival, just days away on June 3rd. Despite the absence of a certain steam train, there were enough regular trains to fill the void.
Worried about. Usually, getting down here at 7:30, I thought we were in trouble. Thank you.
That's not an answer.
There was something for everyone. The variety of activities for both the young and old, like those old cars, are the reasons why many people stayed all day. Rail exhibits were furnished by Virginia Rail Express, including short trips that ran in the push-pull fashion, and NS brought in their exhibit car and specially painted commemorative GP59 diesel number 4610. We'll close out this event with one more of those shiny VRE trains. We've talked about a year full of ups and downs, and in June it lived up to its reputation. That's when we lost chapter member Gary Helligas. He was 32. At press time, much discussion was held as to whether or not we should mention that Gary died as a result of AIDS. The general consensus was that we should try to understand that word and not be ashamed of it. This chapter, this group of volunteers, family as we call ourselves from time to time, never had to deal with this before. No longer was it something on the evening news. It was here, and it took one of our friends. Gary signed up to be a member in 1990, after I showed him engine 1218 running north out of Danville. He put his eye and camera on the train many times. He saw the 611 almost hit a deer in 1992, helped out on many trips, and was a regular on those school kid specials we ran. And when selling souvenirs, he preferred to walk the train. Like all of us, he was saddened to hear the STEAM program was canceled. And Gary was proud of the way this chapter ran those trips when ABC and Mr. O. Winston Link rode with us. He said that was the best thing we'd ever done. Those trips were June 11th and 12th, a year to the day of Gary's death. He was here for 5 years, and we should remember his smile and eagerness to work for a long time. Summer was rolling on, and it was time for all of us to ride a train. Time for the chapter outing, August 12th and 13th. Dora Tucker and Ken Miller prepared this trip well. First stop, Orbersonia, Pennsylvania, home of the East Broadtop Railroad. The EBT once hauled coal and passengers for 75 years on a 33-mile stretch of narrow-gauge track. The back shops, roundhouse, and depot all operated right here. Then one day, without prior notice, the place closed down. The shops were closed. The men walked home and never came back. Everything stands today just the way it was left in 1956. It's a national shrine, and we were told to touch nothing unless you wanted to change history. Mr. Stanley Hall has been taking care of this place since 1960. And inside the steel shop, he explains to us how locomotive parts were made.
Now, what I talked to you about a pattern is this. It took a master craftsman to be a pattern maker. I left this in here. That's a wooden grate pattern out of a locomotive. All them little pieces are all individual pieces, glued and nailed together. They would take that pattern and they'd put their foundry clay out here on the floor or in one of them foundry boxes, and they worked it to a texture, and then they put that down in it. And after it dried, they lifted it out. Now, I'm not going to lift this. This is the result of that wooden pattern. That is a steel grate. If you come over and you walk around, you'll see some of the nail holes, some of the port marks on it was where they put nails and little pins, what have you, to help hold the foundry clay together.
Let's come back to Mr. Hall's great narration, without notes, in a few minutes. For now, let's ride this national treasure.
All the cars you see here, all the hopper cars were built right here in these shops. The flat cars were built here. The box cars were built here. The cabooses was built here. And before the steel cars come, they were wood. The coaches you rode in today, the parlor car in the rear of the train was bought from the Kinzua Railroad as a parlor car. The only time the company used it when the officials come out of Philadelphia. The remaining cars, of course, the two open cars, one was a box car my dad and I converted over in 1960. The other was a flat car. We built a bench in it, put a new floor and a handrail on it, and that's what it served as. The other four coaches come from the Boston, Revere Beach, and Lynn, and they date back to 1882.
Before we leave Warbursonia, let's check out old number 15, plus the trolleys of the Shade Gap Electric Railway that some of us actually got to ride, and a rare bus photo session before it's off to Cumberland.
Yeah, you're going to get hit here.
We really enjoyed our stay at this quiet country stop, but the silence was broken as you-know-who and what's-his-name were debating which way the bus would go to Western Maryland. Familiar passenger cars from an auction in Birmingham and a cab ride aboard Mountain Thunder were just ahead. It is 11:30 Sunday morning. We're about to depart Cumberland for Frostburg with Western Maryland number 734. The locomotive was brought in from the upper Great Lakes region and has been altered somewhat to resemble power on the Western Maryland Railroad. Today's coaches are a familiar sight. They're from the NS Steam Program auction, and the trip to Frostburg is all up steep grades. This is the route of the chapter's 1973 Independence Limited, and it includes the famous Helmstedter's Curve. Now let's watch the crew run this train up the mountain. Just east of Frostburg, our train begins the final but steepest part of the climb into town. At this point, those at the station can hear the roar 2 miles away. The engine wants more coal, and the fireman never lets up. Western Maryland 734 gets her breath, while all of us Roanoke chapter folk went to a nice meal set up for us in dining cars. Meanwhile, 734 heads to the turntable for the return trip to Cumberland. Watching this process, uneventful to some, was rather rewarding to us. The joy of watching the crew doing something we know anyone would want to do at least for a day, no matter what name was on the tender. We know we had lots of fun on our trips, and we knew these folks were enjoying it too. Afterwards, the public was invited for a ride on the turntable.
Hi, Gary. Hello, Gary. Hi, Gary.
Frostburg Station has gone through a major renovation. It once was riding inside and out. Now it's the center of attention in this part of the state. We soon were counting mileposts back to Cumberland, and the race to the vestibule was on. We had a lot of fun in Cumberland, a town very rich in railroad history, and a town that was full of pro golfers from Virginia. As August came in, the sale of car 727 was finalized, and we spent a lot of hours returning the car to Southern Heritage. And our road crew spotted this on a water tower in Crewe, Virginia. Seems like they took her away, but the memory wears on. October 8th, 9th, and 10th were the dates for this year's Roanoke Railway Festival and the unveiling of Class J number 611. Our chapter provided food and drink, and the hands necessary to uncover 611. Over 2,000 of 611's friends showed up that Friday night. We were busy for the next couple of weekends. Our cars would go to the Watauga chapter for a trip there, and some cars would go to Danville's Railway Festival.
Where the Harvest Jubilee is in full swing. Now, you might recall Danville won a federal grant to fix up the train station in the park. So as Jill Osler reports, this year's festival is paying a tribute to trains.
The railroad is taking center stage at this year's Harvest Jubilee. Danville's getting a chance to relive some of the rich history on the rails.
We've always felt that train travel in Danville's always been near and dear to everyone's heart.
School children got a chance to peek at the past and the future at Auctioneers Park. They checked out a Norfolk Southern exhibit car and stepped back several decades to this 1916 club car. It used to run the rails between New Orleans and Chicago.
Well, I think there's no getting away from it that railroads built America. And this heritage, I think, has hung on.
The very newest on the rails rolled into Danville's restored train station as well. Amtrak brought in a brand new sleeper car straight from the factory, and folks think this is the way to go.
They look comfortable, and next time when I go somewhere, I would like to ride a train instead of fly.
But some of the old-timers, like this retired conductor, can't believe the way trains have changed. You like these new ones?
I've never ridden one, but they all right, I guess.
Yeah. You like the old ones better?
Oh, yeah, you know, something you grew up with.
Reporting for Virginia's 13th at the Harvest Jubilee, I'm Jill Osler.
You know, we all have to die someday, but I don't think this is the last thing we all want to see. You saw our chapter caboose being completed earlier in the year. Now take a look at the official dedication ceremony. Using chapter-owned Alco switcher number 41, Ken Miller's Virginian caboose, and our new addition. Notice people wearing coats. It's November. And we had our election of officers and the leadership now for a new yet challenging year. On November 18th, Carl Jensen retired from NS, and there was a surprise party for him, with friends from all of the places he's been. He said the best job a rail fan could have ever had was working on the real thing. We're glad he led the train through all of the pressures of company brass, and we're glad for all of the miles that this group has covered. As Christmas got closer, we were producing and finishing a video program, 611, The Final Trips. 67 minutes of 611's last 4 weekends of operation before retirement. You'll find this tape on sale at our gift shop in the Transportation Museum. And as the Hotel Roanoke returned to service, we returned to it for our yearly Christmas banquet. Jim Wren, our special guest, was there, and we had Bill Carson receiving a thank you award. A final few words from our past president, Gary Gray, and a new president started his first day here. How can you put a year's worth of events in one program? It's not easy, but we managed to put the most into it. If there is a year that has tested our will, our mettle, and determination, it was 1995. But we made it. We knew we would. Thanks to everyone who contributed last year and in the making of this tape. We'll see you next year.